Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. In this video we'll be covering the basics of photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is a process done by most plants. It's also the most important biochemical process on Earth. So yeah, it's a big deal. It's the reason why Earth went from a planet with no life at all to a planet with lots of life. So it's definitely worth us getting to know. So we'll be covering what photosynthesis is, the basic process of it, and also why photosynthesis is important for all life on Earth. So photosynthesis is described as the process whereby a plant uses sunlight to produce food, and food in the form of glucose, which is a sugar molecule. But this isn't the whole picture, because for plants to make something, they first need materials to make it. And in this case, if we look at the glucose molecule, a plant requires carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen elements. So three elements to make this one molecule. It gets those from its surroundings. It gets the carbon from the carbon dioxide, which it gets from the air. It gets the hydrogen from the water, which it can absorb from the ground through the roots. It gets its oxygen from the carbon dioxide as well. And by now you might have noticed that there's an extra oxygen that is gone unused. And this explains why oxygen is released as a waste product during photosynthesis, which we'll be looking at later. But that's not all. Um, Other than the materials that it also needs a way to break these materials apart and then put them back together as a new material, in this case, glucose. And plants can do that by using the energy which it gets from the sunlight. So now that we know everything a plant needs, let's create the entire picture of the process of photosynthesis. So we have our sunlight. Now we need our carbon dioxide, which is absorbed through the leaves. We need our water, which is absorbed through the roots and taken up to the leaves. And these three things, the water, the carbon dioxide, are transformed by the sunlight into a product which is the glucose sugar, which is food that plants use to build themselves to grow. And then lastly, oxygen is released as waste because that is the extra materials that is not used to make the glucose, so it is therefore released into the air as a waste product during the process of photosynthesis. It's important to note, on a side note, it's important to mention that the way that plants can absorb sunlight is through a green pigment known as chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is found within this structure over here. We can sort of see them, these circular structures in the cells. So this one hexagonal shape here is a cell of a plant. So in the cells we have these round structures called chloroplasts, and this is where we find the chlorophyll. Chloroplast, I will make mention of it briefly, is sort of like the power station of the plant cell, and they can contain hundreds of them, and well, in the whole plant there can be millions of them, and each of these structures, these chloroplasts, are like solar powered power stations that convert sunlight into electrical energy that the plant uses to do photosynthesis, which, if you think about it, is pretty amazing that a plant has essentially has millions of tiny solar power stations. Another thing worth mentioning is the stomata, which is how plants can exchange gases. So during photosynthesis, the plants use their stomata to absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. And during respiration, plants use the stomata to inhale or take in oxygen and then release carbon dioxide. Sort of how, like you do when you breathe in oxygen and you breathe out carbon dioxide. So for plants' respiration, it's the same. It's worth mentioning that plants can't do both respiration and photosynthesis at the same time. Usually, or actually what happens is that the side of the plant that's in sunlight, those leaves are doing photosynthesis, and the side that is not in sunlight, they're doing respiration. And that's how the plant can um, basically get around doing both processes at the same time. Right, so let's look at the overview of the process of photosynthesis once more. Remember that carbon dioxide and water are transformed into glucose using sunlight as energy. Oxygen is released as waste. And that is the process of photosynthesis. So we come to the part where we sort of look at why photosynthesis is important for all life on Earth, not just plants. Well, the first reason is that it produces sugar. And sugar is a nutrient that gives living things energy. In fact, that's how all or most living things on Earth get their energy from sugar, which is exclusively produced by plants or phototrophic organisms. We can see how this energy is moved from one living thing to another through a food chain. So it starts at plants or phototrophic organisms, and then it moves to herbivores, and then finally to animals like carnivores or omnivores that eat other animals or plants. So the rabbit here, the herbivore, can use the energy that is taken from the plant from eating the plant to produce its materials to build its body, like muscles and fat. And then the carnivores can turn that muscle and fat back into energy, so to use for its own life processes. The second reason why photosynthesis is important for all life is it produces oxygen, which all living things need to breathe or respirate. And the third reason why photosynthesis is important for all life is that it regulates the amount of carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere by absorbing carbon dioxide. So, too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere can speed up the process of global warming, warming Earth too rapidly, which can cause extinction for many living things. But the plants absorbing the carbon dioxide really slows down the global warming process, and so prevents major extinction events. I hope you found that helpful. Never stop learning. Till next time. I'm about to make like a tree and leave.